Hey, welcome to my Rapid Action Art lesson. My name is Kennedy and today we're going to be discussing traditional Indigenous art methods, specifically creating our own paintbrush. This lesson ties in great with the Grade 1 curriculum, as the Grade 1 curriculum focuses on traditional and contemporary Indigenous art methods. This lesson is also great for introducing visual literacy, as you can take your students on a nature walk where they can pick out their own brushes, which would be branches in this case, and they can also pick out their own rocks. So for today, the materials that we will need is a branch. The branches need to be a little bit drier. They can't be fresh branches as the tips are hard to manipulate. We're not going to get that nice fluffy paintbrush. So using a brush that is a little bit drier is going to be great for this lesson. You're also going to need 2 stones. One that's flat, needs to have a nice flat surface. Doesn't have to be completely flat, but at least something that your students are going to be able to steadily hold their branch on. You're also going to need another stone, but this one needs to have some sort of a sharp edge. Doesn't necessarily need to have a point, but it needs to have an edge where it's going to be able to cut through the bark on our branch and to be able to manipulate the edge to create that nice fluffy tip. You're also going to need a medium. In this case, today we are going to use acrylic paint. I found with this lesson, the thicker the paint, kind of the easier it is. A tempera paint would also work well, but it's a little bit harder to move across the page, and it falls off your brush a little bit easier. Alright, so let's get started. So, to do this, you're going to want to take your branch, placing it onto your nice flat stone, and then taking your sharp stone, you're just going to want to start to kind of cut away at the bark. So you're going to want to kind of just rotate it, kind of get all that bark off, because once we get through that outer shell, it's a little bit easier to move. Alright, so now that we've kind of got through that shell there, this is where we want to go a little bit more gentle, and we just want to kind of break up the fibers of our branch. We are just going to manipulate it until we get to the kind of brush tip that we want. So what's great about this is that our students get to have lots of fun practicing, and they can make as many different brushes as they want until they've gotten the right tip that they want. This isn't something that can be done once and then that's it. The students can have lots of fun creating their own tip, because even if this branch doesn't turn out the way they want for a brush, you can just take a pair of scissors, snip that off, and you can just keep going. Alright, so once we have broken this up a bit, so this is why you need something with a bit of a sharper edge, because once we get into the core of this branch, the fibers get a little bit tougher, so we need something that's a little bit sharp. So now I did do this lesson with a grade 1 class, and they had tons of fun. You just obviously need to go through the safety precautions with them first. All right, so that's starting to look a little bit more like our paintbrushes. All right, so now you might want to flip it over and just beat up this side a little bit to get it a little bit fluffier. And again, how fluffy you want your tip is totally dependent on each person and student. All right, so there, now we've kind of got our paintbrush. So, for this lesson, you want to make sure that you are not introducing a new medium, because working with a branch brush is a little bit more difficult than just your traditional classroom paintbrush styles. You also don't want to be introducing a new concept, because I found the grade 1s were slightly frustrated with having to use this style of a paintbrush. So going back to the basics, keeping something a little bit more simple works much better, kind of eliminates that frustration and allows them to have a lot of fun using their new painting tool. So in the lesson that I did, we did a landscape, because that's what they were working on in the previous unit. And that also ties in really nice with our Indigenous theme, because a lot of Indigenous artists paint landscapes. So you can even go off onto another little unit based around Indigenous artists and their style of art. All right, so now we use it just the same as our normal paintbrushes. So just goes on like this. And so now you can use water on these brushes, but you're gonna need a lot of paper towel. So when you are rinsing off your brush, again, be the exact same as our normal classroom paintbrushes, but we want to make sure that we are really drying them, because the branches will hold some of that water and it will thin out your paint. So you want to just make sure we get them nice and dry. And then we can start again. So it's lots of fun. I had the students then use like the opposite tip, and they would use that as some of the designs. Just kind of gives them another form of being able to put the paint on their paper. This is the final product. This one I just did up the night before, just for the purpose of this video, to kind of show you guys. This was all done with the fluffy end of the brush, including the trees. And that is my rapid action art lesson. Thanks for joining.